This is the Entrepreneur Podcast, where we have the privilege of interviewing entrepreneurs and business owners here in the Pacific Northwest. I am your host, Isaac Schaefer.
And I am your co-host, Drew West. You ready to get into it, man?
Let's go. Quincy Henry, owner of Campfire Coffee. Thanks so much for being here, man.
Hey, man. Thanks for being here.
Man, thank you for having me. I feel like we're halfway through with the podcast.
I know. We just riffed for like 20 minutes.
Great.
We were talking about Alaska and Utah, and oh man, good times.
Good stuff.
So we gotta, keep the conversation going. So tell us about your business. Like I said, you're the owner of Campfire Coffee. You and your wife. Mm-hmm. Tell us about Campfire Coffee. You guys have such a cool story, and just dive right in, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to give the Cliff Notes version because there's so many details that when I tell it, I was like, oh man, I forgot this part. So, all right, this is how it starts. July 2018. This is how Campfire gets going. I'm working at a marketing agency in Seattle. Cushy job. I'm partner in the agency doing my thing. I walk into the office one day and no one else is there. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. Whatever. I turn on the music, bust out my laptop. The other two partners walk in and they don't even make eye contact.
Oh, shit.
And then one of them says, can we meet in the conference room?
Oh.
Boom, tears start falling. They're bawling their eyes out. Some stuff had happened, and where we had lost some contracts a few weeks before, some big ones, and they were like, basically gave me an ultimatum. You can stay and kill the program you're working on, which I kind of had my own division, working with small businesses and nonprofits. Kill that and stay with us, or we gotta let you go. We gotta buy you out. So I opted for the latter, which at the time felt stupid, but in hindsight is probably the best thing I could have done. Fast forward October, that same October. So I'm out of work, whatever. I had the contracts, I let them all lapse. Wife is working at a mental health institution just down the road next to Western State. Gets attacked by one of her patients. She is a disabled military veteran. Part of her disability is migraines. This patient that attacks her rams her head into a wall. She gets a concussion. Her doctors are like, you're not going back to that line of work. And I'm on board with that 100%.
Whoa. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's October. That November, we're in Utah, visiting the in-laws. We're driving back. And that's when I look to Whit and like, what are we going to do? Like, come on. We got the mortgage, two car payments, 3 kids. What's happening? She looks at me dead in my face and says, let's start that coffee company I always wanted to do. Mind you, we ain't got no coffee experience. So I'm like, we ain't got nothing better to choose from. Like, let's go. Boom, we lay out the whole idea for the company minus the roasting on this drive back home. Business plan is laid out, 13-hour drive. We get it dialed in. Come home, boom, find a location, boom, start negotiating a lease. We're rolling into 2019. Me being a former marketer, I got the style guide, everything. I got everything dialed in for this Campfire brand. Everything's ready to go. Can't find a roaster to work with, though. I'd reached out to like 8. All of them blew me off or gave me the runaround. So it was ironic in that my wife was talking to her sister in Texas and was explaining this as all this is happening. And she puts her on speaker. And Tawny, my sister-in-law, is like, you guys camp so much, which we did, at least at the time. Like, camping's been our thing. Why don't you guys try roasting over a campfire? Light bulb goes off. I immediately remembered to myself, my first job was in barbecue, so I know about cooking with wood. I think we could do this. And so immediately, Wick gets on Amazon, buys this little popcorn popper off Amazon. The little ones you shake over the campfire, and find some cheap green coffee beans. I think it was from like Son of Fresco up in Bellingham. Boom, we got like 5 pounds of coffee. Popcorn popper comes. We get in the backyard. We used to have this beautiful house off of Waller Road on half acre. We out in the country. Big old fire pit.
Nice.
I'm back there shaking up the beans, burning them to shit. I mean, these beans were trash. But I had to figure this out, right? Like there was no other option. So we rolled through probably another 15 pounds of beans, and we have one of our good friends who eventually became our first employee come over to try out this coffee. And she's kind of a coffee snob. Like
That's the person you want churning out the coffee, right?
absolutely.
Perfect.
And so I had a couple different origins. She's like, yeah, this is really good. I'm going to invite my other friend who worked for Cafe Vita to try this. So she comes over like maybe a week later, and she's the real coffee snob. So I'm like, now we at the big boss level.
Those are my people.
Right? That's you. That's you.
Those are my people.
She's big boss coffee level. So I'm low-key kind of nervous, but excited to hear what she has to say because I think it's good. I'm like, this is different, man. I'm roasting over an open flame. And mind you, I didn't know that you could do this because no one does this. Like I found a YouTube video of like some dude out in the jungle in Africa with a big ass afro over a big bonfire. That was the only thing that I could go off of.
Oh, no kidding.
No one does this. So I'm kind of like copying my man on YouTube with this old video from like the 70s. And she tastes this stuff and is like, I've had that origin before, never had it taste like that. That's incredible. I've had that origin before, never had it taste like this. That's incredible. You got something. All right, cool. So we roasted.
Let's go. Yeah.
All right. Remember, it's 2019. Lease is signed. We're going into construction. We think holiday season 2019. Here we go.
And just for our listeners, where are you located?
Right downtown Tacoma, 17th and Market, right in the Coes building across from the YMCA. And so we're the first tenants in there, right? So naively, we think that the build out's not going to be too much because it's just a concrete box, right? Like, gosh, that was so stupid. In this time frame, we do a GoFundMe. We raise 15 grand. We get our little secondhand equipment from shops that are closing down. We get a little bit of a tenant allowance from the landlord. She's fronting some of the money. So she initially says, we'll give you $25K. And I'm thinking $25K for building. Oh my gosh, this is going to be the Taj Mahal. This is going to be massive.
And then you did the bathroom, and the $25K was gone.
Bro, here's the cold part. We didn't even get that far and the money was gone. So I immediately had to like renegotiate the lease to get more tenant improvement, which she agreed to. And so we thought we were off to the races. But as what happens with construction, stuff goes wrong. People leave, get the money, get their half deposit and walk off the job, whatever. So all this happens. Had physically fought with an inspector. Crazy. So we're like, all right, cool. We're not opening holiday 2019. March 2020, we getting open. It's going down.
Oh, buddy.
March rolls around. I think we all were there.
Wait. What happens in March?
I think it was March 7th. The whole state shuts down.
The whole world shuts down.
Yeah.
The world shuts down, Isaac, right?
Yeah. Damn, that's crazy. COVID does this weird thing with time. I joke like BCAC, like before COVID, after COVID.
Yes.
I would have sworn the first time I went in was before COVID. That's crazy.
Nope. Because we got the shop open August of 2020.
That's crazy. I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah. March 27th or 28th of 2020, we pivoted to online. We had 50 bags of coffee. Wifey had then made a bunch of merchandise using like a Cricut machine and a heat press she got off Amazon. And we sold out that first Friday, and we sold out every week after that. We would drop on Fridays, and within hours. I was looking on Facebook the other day and had a memory from like June 18th because we were doing 50 pounds a week, but by June I was doing 500 pounds of coffee a week.
And you're doing it all yourself?
All myself. It's me and Whitney. That was it.
Damn.
Roasting it, bagging it up, sealing it, delivering it around the entire Puget Sound and taking it to the post office.
Do you guys do all the minor question? All the design?
I do
the labels?
all the designs.
They're really cool.
Thank you.
My wife loves your coffee, and she right from the get-go started putting it in our Airbnbs.
Oh, that's dope.
Because we like to have like, you know, the different stuff that we have in our Airbnbs. We like to have like local companies. And so we still have your coffee in all of our Airbnbs. And with your like story and everything.
That was the whole point. Like, I never saw this as being a thing that was going to be like in a safe way. I was like, our market's going to be like the tourism audience, the people that are adventuring and exploring and traveling, and like that's what this whole brand's
That's your
about.
niche. That's your niche. We were just talking before we started recording about how there's like two types of coffee shops, in my opinion. There's the ones with drive-throughs that are like, it's not about the experience, it's about getting coffee and getting to work.
Correct.
And then there's the experience coffee shops.
Yep.
And there's not much in between.
No, there's not. You're right. You're absolutely right. And we definitely we're going to lean into this whole, and it's authentic. That it's not like we're trying to be that. Like, we camped a lot. We hiked around the Northwest. That was something me and Whitney always did. We wanted to make that, we wanted to make a company that inspired other people to do that as well. That's why we ended up starting like a nonprofit to have a gear library, and we bring in guides to do hikes and campouts, and we do a ton of fundraisers with outdoor groups and youth organizations and all that. So
I definitely want to dig into that towards the end of the podcast.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, continue with the story. So you're bagging coffee. You don't even open in March, obviously, because there's nothing. I mean, everything's locked down. So you're just roasting and selling online.
Super pivot online. Had no choice because we know we're gonna have to start paying rent pretty soon, right? We're looking at the watch like, okay.
How are you marketing? Because like a lot of people sell whole bean because people go in, they like it, and then they're like, I'll buy the whole bean and take it home. Mm-hmm. But it's if nobody's tried it, I mean, there's no free sample. You know what I mean? Like, how are you getting in front of people?
Did it have to do with your Kickstarter? Like, you had a lot of people who supported, and you just had the support of the community, or how did you? Obviously, you're a marketing guy, right? Mm-hmm. So was it Facebook ads? Like, how are you selling this coffee at this point?
I mean, it's some of all of the above. But like the fundraising, the little GoFundMe deal, like we raised $15,000 off of like 20 backers. Like, it wasn't that many people. You know what I think the magic of the campfire story is? It is a concept I don't need to explain to you. Everyone. That was kind of by design, being a former marketer, right? Like, I was working with small businesses and nonprofits. I saw some of the pitfalls of these brands that had really good product, but a not so great story, or vice versa. And I just knew that the sweet spot was going to be, the story has to be authentic to us and who we are. Then we ain't got to sell nothing. We just got to be us. But it also has to be easily translatable. And the idea of campfire coffee and then us roasting, like, so it's the name and the method. Everyone just about that we talk to, they run off on a tangent with it. Like, they have this whole romantic idea of me out in the woods chopping wood, and literally that's what it is. Like, that's not like you're getting it, and I'm not even having to show you. You've already made it up in your mind. So I think that was part of it. And I think what also helped create this, I don't want to call it an inflection point, because we kind of started out like it just went through the roof. It was this idea that we couldn't go anywhere. So I think there was this psychology that here's this coffee company, and I like coffee and I like being outdoors, but I can only have one of them. I can't really go anywhere. Like, nobody could leave the house. You were not doing anything. So we then became this resource for people, because there was this, hey, we want to help you get outside component, where we kind of became like a travel guide. Like, it was this weird deal where either we'd be in the shop, like when it was phase 1, remember that whole thing with the phases? Mm-hmm. Like, where people would come in and be like, legit, like, so where can I actually go? Like, that's legal right now. And so we were almost like the speakeasy of like outdoor adventures. It was weird. So we
awesome.
Became this like, yeah, let me give you your coffee, and yeah, it's cool. It's roasted over some local wood, all that, the other thing. But yeah, I also got like a tent and a sleeping bag that you can check out if you don't have one. And you can take that for the weekend, and you can go do some dispersed camping over here and over here. And so we would give them the gear from the gear library. They would come load up, and then they go off on their little thing and then come back. And so there was this, I think that was part of the marketing, was like, it was more than, we were really living this idea of wanting you to get outside and using coffee to do it. And it was better than people, I think it was magnified because of the circumstances of like humanity's being restricted. Like we're being told what we can't do.
Yeah.
And we're helping you do it in a safe way. So it was cool.
So was that in your original business plan? Because you said you did your business plan on that 13-hour drive and then came up with campfire idea. But before the campfire idea, were you kind of thinking, were you picturing an outdoor theme?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the campfire just was a perfect puzzle piece that was missing.
Yes.
But you already had the idea before the campfire roasting even came up.
Yeah.
That's killer.
Me and Whitney really we thought it would be me and her slanging lattes Monday through Friday or Saturday. When we shut down, we do like group hikes with people or
so
community campouts. Like that's what we thought all this was going to be. We had no idea it was going to be like, once we opened, it was like, we have this e-commerce platform that is serving people in all 50 states plus Canada and Guam. And we'd have like 2 small wholesale accounts. And then we have the shop. And then we have this gear library where people are checking out gear. We didn't plan on none of that. It was just supposed to be something just for the neighborhood, man. That was it.
That's
Wow.
so cool how it's progressed and just like, it's like your business has become a representation of you guys, which is so cool. We just had our 25th episode and we kind of recapped the previous 24, and that was something that we talked about a lot, was how almost everyone we've interviewed has just made their craft about, like, it's a part of them. And again, we're seeing it again. That's just it's part of your story.
As it should be. That again, like being someone who worked with, I mean, I worked with big companies to Microsoft and, but on the smaller companies that I worked with, and there were a good number of them, one of the common pitfalls that we saw was they were trying to be something they thought they should be. Right? They're entering this industry and they think, well, because my competitors or the big guys do X, Y, and Z, I have to work towards that. And so in that, they start to strip away pieces of themselves, right? They become something they're not. Then they're wondering why they're not like connecting with their potential buyer, or they're not getting the traction they hoped they were getting.
Yeah, you're not being connected to your own personal ethos. It's,
Bingo.
You're trying to be something you're not.
Bingo. And that's I think a lot of like really smart business people that I worked with and studied, like I got 100 college degrees, man. And in my doctorate program, I was studying entrepreneurs. And so that's a common thread with some of the most successful entrepreneurs is they're these personalities that, like, what they teach you in business school is one thing, but like they don't teach you the secret sauce of being an entrepreneur, which is really just like, you got to be you, bro. That's really it. You look at they're all different. Like Bill Gates is a super nerd. That's who he was. He didn't try to be super businessman. He was just a really good technologist that happened to build a really good product that people needed at that time. But he wasn't trying to. Steve Jobs was always Steve Jobs. He was always a kind of on edge, hippy dippy, let's go do yoga in the woods and meditate kind of guy.
Absolutely. I mean, they kicked him out of his own company at some point,
Right.
because he was him.
Because he was him.
Yeah.
He didn't fit the corporate. And like, right, like we've seen like the transformation of Zuckerberg over the years. We're like, oh, what happened to the dude in the hoodies? Like now he's like buttoned down and he's all clean cut and like, you look weird, bro. This doesn't even feel like the same guy.
Or Bezos, dude. That's like
Right.
when you look at before and after. Oh my gosh, that dude looks like a
just-
model now.
Yeah, he's just,
Like just
jacked on
ripped
yachts nowadays.
and
It's weird, but for most, it's just, and I think the earlier that small business people kind of understand, like, you are the secret sauce, then you do see, I don't want to say faster results, but probably more impactful and deeper results, right? But that was my superpower that I think I brought to Campfire, was having that background, and Whitney being a military kid was the organizer and the operations person to make it happen. But we don't even really work together. Like, we very seldom see each other.
Because you have different strengths and
Way
weaknesses. Yeah.
Way different.
Well, let's continue on. I like this conversation. So let's continue to step away from the story and talk about this. What do you like? Do you guys struggle with the temptation to grow too fast? So you've got a product that clearly is working. People love it, and you realize that a big part of that is you guys and your story. I could imagine that if you grow too fast, you could lose that authenticity. Mm-hmm. And so how do you kind of balance that? Because, growth is good, but if you grow too fast, you can lose what got you here.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And it's me that has to kind of keep that in check. But thankfully, because we kind of ironed out who we wanted to be and where we wanted to be very early on. So, I mean, and we've gotten, like, we know that, retail is kind of the missing piece. Like, we have strong wholesale, we have strong e-commerce, and there are times where it's like, man, it'd be cool if we were like in Safeway. But at the same time, it's like, no, Trader Joe's is our ideal buyer. And that's why we're the number 1 or number 2 coffee in Trader Joe's, depending on the store you're at. Like, it fits the clientele. But same thing with expanding the retail locations. There's a lot of times where, like, I'll get a message on LinkedIn or something from some broker in their, in the Ozarks. And it's like, oh, it's the mountain biking capital of the country. It's beautiful out there. Real estate's cheap. Taxes are cheap. But do I want to be flying into Bentonville? Like, how am I going to manage that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
got to think about the logistics of it. And it's like, yeah, it'd be great, but gosh, like, you got to have somebody to manage that operation. You got to, if we're going to do it how we want to do it, where we want to go deep in the community, it's like, well, yes, we do have some connections in the outdoor space in that part of the country, but who's going to be the person that heads that up? We don't have.
Who's going to be boots on the ground, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And if you find the wrong person, it can blow the whole thing up.
Correct.
It can really mess with your brand.
Correct.
I mean, that's the problem with franchises in general is, the only franchises that work are the ones that have very strict guidelines. Mm-hmm. You cannot step out of bounds. This is how you make a McDonald's burger. This is how you make the fries, and you don't mess around.
That's right. And that's been the other thing that we've been offered. So we've been offered, venture capital funding, and I'm just like, nah, not yet. This really isn't. I don't think it's right for us right now. We've been offered, people that want to franchise Campfire, and I'm like, no, I'm not in a space where I can put together the processes and systems for a franchisee. I can barely get it right for our one shop.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I'm not gonna just all of a sudden let you, Jimmy Bob in Maine, who has a campground and wants to have a Campfire coffee. Like, nah, I can't do that. So it is a lot of saying no, but here's one thing that I will do, and I think this might be what gets me in trouble, is I will say yes and try to figure it out to almost everything. So I'll at least explore the opportunity. And then you start to weigh out the pros and cons of it, and the pros can be really strong. Like, so here's another example that I'm currently having to restrain myself from. We got a couple of months ago accepted into what's essentially an incubator program with Brookfield Properties, right? They own a ton of malls, like they own Westlake Center and Alderwood and all these, Ala Moana in Hawaii and Whalers Village in Maui and tons of great real estate. And coffee's a real estate game. And so it's, part of this program is at the end of it, which ends this week, you get to kind of shoot your shot with the national leasing team and say, basically, where can we go? Because part of that program is they're going to help you get into whatever properties you want at a much lower barrier than if you're just a guy off the street, right? They're basically paying for your build outs and they're giving you favorable lease terms and all of that. So in a lot of it, I'm thinking in my mind, well, give me every second generation Starbucks. Everyone that they left, give it to me. But at the same time, I don't need everyone.
Yeah.
It's tempting though, because like a program like this runs out in 2 years. Like the funding for it runs out in 2 years. So one part of my head is like, you need to run fast, get all the spots you can get, and go ahead and have your empire. But the more reasonable side of me says, get the ones that you can manage. Get the ones that still fit with what you want to be in terms of this experience brand. And in 2 years, when this money runs out, those opportunities will still be there. But show up and show out in Bend, Oregon, if that's where you want to be. In Park City and Salt Lake, Utah, if that's where you want to be. In Hawaii, if that's where you want to be. And those are the places that we do want to be for the right reasons, right? But it's like, dang, I could show up in Chicago, right there on the lake. Oh, that'd be awesome. But it just ain't, we not there yet.
What advice do you have to an entrepreneur or business owner in the early stages of their business who maybe has opportunities like you knocking on their door and they're trying to figure out, am I growing too fast or is this the next logical step? I know that's hypothetical, and so it's hard to answer that question, but how would you advise somebody to try and determine if it is the next right move, or if like, hey, calm down, you haven't earned the right to make that step?
Sure. I think that there's probably 3 ingredients to that would help. The first one is, more so than anything, your mindset really matters. Like you really have to have a mindset that allows you to be able to kind of remove yourself out of the situation and think about what is right for your organization, what is right for you and your goals personally, and if this kind of fast growth even makes sense. And to complement that, I think the next thing would be having a philosophy around that, right? Like knowing who you are and what you're trying to do helps. Well, it's kind of like a style guide for me as a marketer, right? Whenever I would have a conflict with a client about a design or some campaign, it's like, well, wait a minute. Let's go back to the style guide because we covered this and we agreed on this 6 months ago. That's our roadmap. Oh, we're getting off of our roadmap. The roadmap says this is what we should do. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't change up the roadmap. You can absolutely alter that, and you should. But if you have a philosophy that kind of guides your thinking and guides what you're trying to do, just like me, like I just know if I'm going to make a 6-hour flight to check in with staff, I would much rather have that be to Hawaii than to be to Philadelphia. And that's just me personally.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is a great market. I've been there. It's a fun town. But I also know that Philly isn't quite the coffee culture that Hawaii is either, right? So little things like that help me, because if I can't show up in Philadelphia with the excitement that I would in Hawaii, then that translates down to the people who are boots on the ground. If I'm showing up in Philly and I'm like, I don't even really want to be here.
Yeah.
They can feel that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And so I think that goes a lot further than, it may appear on the surface. And I think the third thing to that is the numbers just don't lie. Like, you know your business and you know when it's time to grow. Where like for us, I know it's time. Like the coffee industry, you can move a lot of volume, but the margins are not great. So I get now why a Starbucks, being who they are and how they're structured with all the shareholders and people that they got to create value for, yeah, it makes sense you would have 38,000 stores around the world. You have to.
Yeah.
Right? When you're that big, like you have. So I get why Dutch has 400 locations around, and now they're a publicly traded company. Like, I get it. So for us, it's like, for example, yeah, I would love to have 50 to 100 stores, but they're all going to be in the right spots where I know we have a psychological advantage. And I know that our story resonates deeper than just Little Susie's coffee stand, would, right? Like it's weird because
Well, I mean, the perfect example was Bend, Oregon, or Philadelphia.
That's
right. Like,
That's right.
You got the people in Bend, Oregon. Who are the people of Bend, Oregon? Who are going to really appreciate what you're doing, appreciate the story.
Correct.
And then people in Philly who just want some coffee. You know.
Yeah, and that's a rough city. Like I've been to Philly enough to know that those are some mean people. They just mean, bro.
They threw snowballs at Santa Claus when the Eagles were losing. They literally threw snowballs at Santa Claus when the Eagles were losing.
That's what I'm saying. See what I'm saying?
Like, come on.
You pick and choose your battle. And it doesn't mean that in 10 years, maybe Philly makes sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that they're completely off the table, but at least like while we're still really young and we're still just one shop with a couple of good wholesale, right? We got a lot of ground to make up. So we're still in this brand affinity war. Not even like brand loyalty. People are going to be loyal to Dutch and loyal to Starbucks. They might not be loyal to Campfire yet. They might love us, but we need to be able to turn that love into the loyalty. And that just takes time.
Yep.
And so if I'm going to create a roadmap where we can continue to stay in this love fest mode, it's going to be in Bend, right? It's going to be in maybe Anchorage. It's going to be in Salt Lake, Utah. It's going to be in Tacoma. It's going to be throughout the Pacific North, right? It's going to be in those spots where the mission, the product, the story can all have a really deep impact.
So I got an interesting question, something we talked about on the last podcast a little bit. The question was, do you have to love what you do to be successful? So I wonder if, because it seems like you've gained a lot of traction. You said it's time to grow, right? And you don't necessarily want to grow to the wrong spots. So I wonder if, this is kind of your guys' baby. You and your wife, you were kind of up against a wall and you're like, okay, we're doing this. If you didn't love what you did, do you think that you would expand rapidly and then maybe sell and get out?
Do
you
still
think that
love to sell
because
and get out. That's come on, man. That's the exit
that's
plan.
the empire, right?
That should be every business owner's goal.
Absolutely.
Honestly, if you're smart, that should be your goal.
Yeah. Sell high, buy low, sell high, man. That's the name. That's the other thing too, is the balance, right? Like I do love it. Don't get me wrong. I've had a million jobs and everything. Like I love this. Do you need to love it? You should.
That's a good answer.
And well, because here's the thing that I always battle with that's kind of related to that is this. I don't think you should have a passion for it. I don't like passion, but that's just me personally. Like passion is fleeting, right? You hear it like, oh, it was a moment of passion.
Yeah,
it was a crime of passion. Like that's just momentary. I think you should grow the passion to a genuine love of something. Like you might be passionate about your girl when you first meet her, but you eventually love her. Right, but in the moment, like keep it real, like she's just fine. Like, she's a 10, bro. She's stacked. Right. She's cute. She makes me laugh. Like I just want to be around her, and then eventually, like it grows to like genuine love. I think that's where you should want to get to. But in terms of business, and I've seen business owners that have messed up and like they are in love with the idea of the money around the business, and that hurts them. Right. It depends on the person too, but I think you should love it. You should.
Because
I think
I
you
feel
gotta
like
love
aspects of it, right? So
right.
You got to love pieces of it. You might not love your whole business, right? Because it obviously business is hard and there's different aspects that aren't fun.
Right.
But there's got to be a portion of it that you love.
I do love having an outdoor brand.
Yeah.
I love this space. I love being out. I love camping, hiking, like built a company around things that we really enjoy doing. So that's cool. And prior to that, I really enjoyed marketing and psychology. But before that, I was a touring musician and I thought I would do music forever. I thought that was it. When I was on the road for 4 years, I was like, this is it. This is the life. This is what I want to do. Then I met that girl that was stacked and was
just want to be around you all the time.
And then we had a family, and then I had to do like some self-analysis. Like, okay, so what is it that I really love? Because I'm not really digging being in Philly and going into the local coffee shop and watching this 90-year-old woman cuss out the whole like weird experiences, or the idea of like that wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. Like, I've been to all these cities and I've never really been there. Like, there was that too. And then I realized what I actually loved and what I was actually interested in was learning, was creating things. And if I can do it while I'm like camping or hiking or in some cool ass Airbnb, like, sign me up. I can roast coffee while being in the middle of the trees. Like, hell yeah, that's dope.
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would love to get to the point where, yeah, like, we built this brand. And I just know there's going to come a point where it gets so big that it does need to be handed over to some individuals that can manage that kind of operation.
Foster what you built.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I'm working towards is, you get it to that point, and then you say, okay, I really need help. And that might look like some kind of an acquisition or some kind of a merger with a bigger conglomerate or something like that. And I would still want to be involved. Like, I wouldn't take the check and just like, all right, I'm out. If they said part of this is you got to stay on for 5 years, like, I'll probably stay on for 10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I still love what we're building. And I still see the impact that it has in communities, and that's what I enjoy. But that's what I love. So, I don't know. I
loved your analogy about like when you first start dating somebody. I think that's really a great analogy because, like, have you ever read the book? I think it's called like Motivation Doesn't Work. Maybe I'm butchering that.
I've not.
But it says, like, if you just rely on that like excitement right at the beginning of something, that will burn out.
Yes.
And we got that advice in like pre-marriage counseling with our pastor. He said, you guys have to find out what you're about and what beyond you're attracted to each other now. And he said, I guarantee you that will change. You will not feel this attracted to her or him in a few years. You won't.
Right.
So what, like, you got to fall in love with something deeper than that.
That's right.
Right. And so, like, do you have to love what you do? No, but you got to love aspects of what you do.
Absolutely.
Like, so for me, we interviewed somebody who was talking about you got to have your story and your why and your mission statement. I've been really working on that and trying to like really hone in on like what do I love about selling real estate. And for me, I'm still working on it, but it really keeps coming to. I love helping people get into real estate as investors and thinking about their first home purchase and their second home purchase as an investor as opposed to just a home buyer. Right. And I'm working through it. That's not my final thing, but that it's excited me. It's something that I can keep going back to and get reinvigorated by.
Yes.
Because the motivation will run out.
Yes.
Right? You get burnt out. So you got to love the story. And I just thought your analogy there was really, because I hadn't compared it to marriage, but I think, marriage is a business partnership.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, you guys are freaking business partners.
No
You're
doubt.
not on the same page. And
even if you don't own a business together.
Yeah.
Just so we can clear that up.
For real.
It's a business.
It's a business.
It is.
You guys
100%.
share finances.
Yes.
You have employees that you pay instead of that cost you so much money. I can't even believe how much money my kids cost. Oh my Lord.
Tell the truth. Man.
Dude, we were just talking about it the other day. I'm like, where did all our money go before we had kids?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
No, I feel you.
Sorry for the tangent.
I feel you. Oh no, I'm in birthday season right now, man. It's my daughter's
buddy.
9th birthday today. And so
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Big girl Quinn, she's 9. So our birthdays are April, May, June, and I'm in July. So like we in the middle of birthday season, and every year it makes me shake, man. I'm like, all these damn parties and goodie bags and going to the movies, and it's like, yo, why?
Well, and then you
y'all want to
stack
go
on,
to college?
you stack on all these people come to your kid's birthday.
Of course.
And then you start getting all the invites to their
Oh,
birthdays.
my God.
And you're like, damn, all right, $30 a gift.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Like,
Yeah, and
you're
I'm
like,
and I'm the guy that's like, yo, can we just like give mom and dad a bag of coffee? Like, call it good. Like we was here. Here's a bag of coffee for y'all to be energized to take care of a little Scooter. Nah.
You're showing up
Dude,
to a 9-year-old's
Scooter's
birthday
3.
party
Yeah.
with like a bag of coffee. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
That's hilarious.
It's good stuff, though.
When's your birthday in July?
July 5th.
July 5th. Woo! That's coming up.
12:22 a.m. Tacoma General Hospital, 1983, baby.
Nice, man.
Yeah, Hulk had just won the WWF Championship that night, as the story goes. I got 4 older brothers. Oh man, my brothers tell this story every year.
So big 4-0. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Doing anything big this year?
No, I mean, no. We're gonna hang out at the beach a little bit. The following week we go to Hawaii. Like we're growing coffee in Hawaii, so it's partially a work trip. So we'll take the kids to Hawaii. Let them. They've never been. I guess that's for my 40th.
Nice.
Even though it's like we leave the week later.
Sure.
But yeah, just for the day, man. I normally would celebrate on the 4th because that's when everybody's partying anyway.
Yeah.
Like
Sure,
growing
for
up,
sure.
it was like especially 21. Like, hey, like we're kicking it on the 4th. We're gonna be out at the bar.
It's all about American me. Let's
That's
go.
right. And at 12 o'clock, it's about me, and then we get right back to woo America, and that's it. And we take a couple shots. So we keep it low key, man. I don't know. It's weird. You get to that point where like birthday is just like, oh damn, that's right. It's my birthday coming up. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I agree.
same here.
Same.
I-
After 30, it feels
Yes.
like it's just kind of like 30 and then 35 and 40 and then maybe 50 and
That's it.
then I'm done with birthdays.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
I turned 30 last month, and everyone's like, "Oh, big 30, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Should I be doing something different?" Like, so.
I don't know, man.
Then my
I
wife
feel
kept
you.
asking me, and I said, "Okay, you want to know? I want to golf all day long."
That's right. That's
And
right.
that's what I did.
Yeah, where'd you go?
All day long. Baby.
We started at Trophy Lake. Andrew's the only one who did both with me. We started at Trophy Lake with a
Nice.
group, and then we got a group of, I think there were 16 of us at Gold Mountain.
Damn.
Yeah.
That was a long round.
Dude, it was a long day.
16?
Oh, yeah.
Because
And-
not
and-
everybody's proficient. If I'm out there with you, we might still be there.
Dude, it was
You
a
and me
long
both,
day.
brother.
I was
You and me
sunburned,
both.
and of course it's your birthday, so everyone's like, "Got you, I'm buying you a drink," and then we're like, "Oh man,
Full 18?
Full 18, yeah, full 18 at
36
Trophy,
holes.
and then a full 18 at Gold Mountain." And yeah, I was pretty burnt in many
Golf
ways by the
marathon.
end
I
of the
think
day.
it was like 85 degrees that day too, so
Yeah.
just staying super hydrated with H2O and
36 holes.
Not me, man. I didn't even know water existed that day. It was just, I had too many drinks to drink.
36 holes of golf in a single day, man. I'm beat after 18.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah.
It wasn't
I'm
smart.
done.
I wouldn't advise it. But it was fun.
18, I'm done. I'm just a wrap. I'm going
man.
home.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about what you do in the community, because you've obviously
Yeah.
you built a really cool company, and I do want to ask you a little bit about growing coffee in Hawaii
Sure,
after this.
sure.
But talk a little bit about what you do in the community.
Yeah, so we have a gear library. We've worked with like Evo. They're a cool company. And people just donate gear and folks can just check it out. Because that was part of the deal, was like, how do we get people outside? Well, gear's a big barrier because it's
expensive. Yeah, it is.
So the gear library is one. We're also starting to have classes. I think next month we're going to do one. It's kind of like Camp and Hiking 101. Because our whole idea was like, imagine if you went to REI and there was a coffee shop right in the middle. What would that feel like? Like, you can go to REI and get a class. You can get the gear. You can get the whole thing. So we're doing the classes, but it's all like entry level. Like, we're not doing the let's go hike Mount Rainier tomorrow type stuff. Just like, yo, this is how you set up a tent. This is how, these are, your 10 essentials, blah, 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 blah. So we'll have that. So we got the gear library, and then we do a ton of fundraisers, which is, I feel bad about. We don't really publicize a lot, but we've raised, I want to say, and I could be misquoting this, but I think it's close to 150,000 in coffee. So it could just be 50. I'm gonna be modest. It's just been 50,000.
I mean, that's still great.
For different outdoor organizations around the country through coffee sales. So, we'll do a custom design label for them and host it on our website, and we give them half the proceeds. So it's basically like a wholesale coffee for us.
Sure.
And yeah, and that even started because COVID changed our whole idea of doing day hikes and trips with customers. The camp I went to as a kid, they actually reached out to us like May of that year that they were doing a virtual summer camp, but had like 13 kids that were on their waiting list and asked if we would donate. And I was like, well, I ain't got money to donate, but I'll give you the proceeds of a sale. Like, let's do a promo. And they agreed. And I think they needed to raise $1,500, and we raised the $1,500 in a weekend. And so then that became like, this could be the way that we help get more kids outside. Is let's find these programs and let's kind of like work with them and sponsor them and do email marketing and, you know. And so, yeah, we've worked with probably 30, 40 different organizations around the country since we got going.
Dude, that's so cool. And that's so important.
Super important.
I spent a lot of time in the woods as a kid. I was very, very lucky to have a dad and a grandfather who loved being outside, loved fishing. So we do lots of trips, lots of hiking.
That's right.
All over Washington and Oregon. And I didn't realize how important that was until I was much older. And I'd go hiking with some buddies, right? And you like, how do I set this tent up? I'm like, what do you mean, how do you set the tent up? Dude, how are we going to start a fire? Like, what do you mean? How do we start a fire? Like, you guys will be dropped out here, you die in a day.
Literally.
And then also, like, once I got older, right, we all got wearables. There's just some anecdotal evidence of being in the woods. Super ADHD in the city, and my heart rate is generally just moving around, you know, between 75 and 80, right? I noticed a couple weeks ago, right, I'm out on the lake. I look down, my heart rate's like 60. Just chilling. Just chilling. Relaxed. My brain is not going crazy, not super inundated with lights and things and billboards, and my brain's constantly popping. I'm just focused on the lake. I'm focused on the osprey that just flew down and picked out a fish.
Come on.
And like the moments that you get being in the woods are they're peaceful. And I mean, I feel like, you know, we all came from that.
Yep.
You know, there's something deep down biologically inside that you crave about being out there. And so for you guys to be able to provide that experience for kids who maybe didn't have the grandfather or the dad or the uncle who really wanted to be out there, that it feels like that is truly making some serious change.
Dude, that's the part of the work that means the most. That is, I mean, you hit, I'm over here like, yes, preach. Because that's it, right? Like, it's weird. It was weird to me when I finally kind of realized it. I was working on a project for REI like in 2017 and talking with I was a contractor. I was talking with their social media team, and we would have these discussions about, you know, the benefits of being in nature and how so many people have been removed from that. Like how much of humanity has been taught that like being in cities and urban settings are where we belong, to the point where you got swaths of people that are literally legit like, I will never sleep in the woods.
Yeah.
The majority of people feel like, I got cousins that laugh at like, oh yeah, like they're down in Kentucky, but like, y'all are in the backwoods of Kentucky. You know what this is.
Yeah.
Like, come on, don't play. You guys are out there shooting squirrels and mutton. And like, come on. Dude. You're out on the lake all the time. But it's weird in that, like, when you put it in a certain context, they look at it like, nope, that's not for me. But these concrete buildings and this pollution and these, like...
screens everywhere.
That's for you? Like, no way. But that's how they feel.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's because we're soft.
Yeah.
It's so easy to sit down and play a game on your phone while you watch a movie.
That's right.
So easy.
That's right.
And to convince somebody to get up, put on their shoes, pack their car, go hike 2 miles and set up a tent.
They won't do that.
No, it sounds too hard. I'm not
sounds
good.
way too
Dude,
hard.
and
you know,
God,
and
there's just
weird.
something so gratifying. Like, okay, so we were backpacking. This is probably like 4 or 5 years ago now. It's Tubal Cane Mines, kind of up in that area. It's a 3.5 hike mile in. The hike up is pretty gnarly. You got switchbacks and stuff, and you're carrying, 50 to 70 pounds. Get everything set up. Everything we need is in our packs.
Yep.
And it snows. And I'm pretty sure that my tent was waterproof. Well, it turns out my tent was not waterproof. And it's like 1:30. It's freezing. I'm soaked. So it's like, well, we're going to die or we're going to do something about this. So you got to get up, start a fire while it's snowing, hang your bag up, sitting there in your boxers shaking over a fire. And then like, you know, you're hiking down 2 or 3 days later and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a crazy experience. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I survived. You know, pretty cool. We got down. Everyone's alive. And
your first take was better to get people outdoors. That one probably did not help the cause. That one did not help the cause. Like,
no, man.
Right.
And we lost them.
No, but you said there's something super gratifying about doing something hard. Even if you don't know it's going to be hard, having the skills to be able to get out of it unscathed.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Yeah, man, it's beautiful. I love it.
The first time I went backpacking without adults, I was like 16 years old. My brother was like 19. We had 2 other people with us who were our age. And we did pretty good. I mean, we grew up going to 4-H and like having backpacking classes and survival classes and stuff like that.
You did.
We were good on all that. But one thing we drastically underestimated was how much food to pack. Young kids growing and then hiking. We were backpacking 12 miles a day. It was a 4-day loop. So, you know, almost 50 miles.
So you smashed half your food on the hike.
Dude, we ate dinner after lunch at like 3:00. And then we're like, I'm starving. But every night we had campsites up by a stream. And so we just took out our little fishing packs and put some string on a stick.
Come on.
And dude, we had a whole conveyor belt. We had 2 people fishing, and then they were passing the fish to another guy who was cleaning them, and they were passing it to me, and I was seasoning, you know, putting some lemon on it and putting it in tinfoil and just sticking it in the fire, tinfoil in the fire. And we ended up catching like probably 20 a night, and we would all just eat like 5, you know, and it was like, okay, that's good. It was awesome.
That's dope.
Yeah.
But that's what it's about.
Oh yeah, that experience I will never forget. It was
Bingo.
rad, even though the fish were totally not legal to catch and eat.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna have some park ranger.
Oh no, dude, we were talking about it at the time. We knew it, but we're like, hey, we're starving. Like I will go to jail for this. Like I need to eat.
Yeah, good protein, fresh.
That's right.
So
and those native trout too, man. They're
gosh.
different. I don't know, like you fish in lakes here and you see just like the rainbow trout that you're pulling out.
Right.
And then you go fishing up in the mountains somewhere and you
Right.
pull out this brown trout that's 18 inches that's got purple dots on it. And you're like, what is this? Like, this is crazy.
Oh, and I'm sorry if I offend somebody, but eating something that was alive an hour ago, ooh,
Man.
Oh, yeah.
there is something
like it.
way better about
Yeah,
it.
man.
Like you don't even you compare that to a can of fish, and it's not even the same food.
No. Not even close. But that's what it's about, man. That's what the whole work is about. Those stories right there. That's it. I will never forget, you know, getting some of the like thank you messages when it was really early on and we were like getting people VRBOs and getaway cabins and stuff. And, you know, one family, it was a woman wanted to take her sister. She was going through cancer treatment. And she had like been to Honduras and done all the holistic stuff and, you know, but just being able to come back and then go into nature that she felt more comfortable with because it was local and like what that did to her mood and how she just saw an improvement in her sister. Like though, and all they did was just hike around. Like they didn't do anything crazy. They just hiked around. They were down there kind of by Mount Hood. And just kicked it for like 3 days. And we were able to just pay for that. Like they'll never forget that. They'll never forget that. That's the ultimate thing. That's like I kind of try to explain in so many ways. Like, yeah, we're not really a coffee company. Like we are a coffee company. You hear that from brands all the time. We're really not this. They're not this. We're really this. Like, yeah, you still like we are in the business of coffee. Absolutely, that is our product that we sell, and is what the transaction is. But we really do see ourselves as more of an outdoor experience lifestyle company. That's what we're trying to ultimately provide. The coffee is just one aspect to that. That's the one thing that I think we're pretty good at too. But
yeah, I love that. I mean, successful businesses, they're always more than their product, right?
For sure.
They're about an experience. Like even big companies like Apple, like there's there's something you think when you think of Apple, sleek and sexy and shiny, and then
Look, here you go.
then there's dummies over here.
Let me just put this away.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
man.
no,
Just
he's
kidding.
a hater. I don't. We're not getting into this. This comes up like every other podcast.
I'm the only one within a 5-mile radius that has a Samsung phone. So
Yeah,
it's
green
okay.
text. It's your fault.
All right.
Anyways,
We'll pray
I
for
love
you.
that. Yeah, exactly. I love that you're so much more than coffee, and that's just a common theme that we see.
Thanks, man. That's good. That's good that is a common thing because there's so many that, in my experience, they don't realize that yet. The early companies, they think they're doing one thing when it's like you peel back just a couple layers and you find out, nah, you guys are doing something way deeper than whatever it is, selling widgets. Like it's something you're trying to get somewhere. And it's like you're in your own way. That's dope that you guys have been able to like have people on that get that early.
Yeah,
'Cause that's a tough one, man.
it's tough, and again, that's something that I've asked people like, what advice do you have for new entrepreneurs and business owners, and they really come back to like really figure out the why. What problem are you solving, and what is that? How can you translate that to a story?
That's right.
Because a story impacts people, right? Just
it.
coffee doesn't impact me. But when you sell the story of the outdoors and roasting coffee over a campfire and getting kids out away from the screens, that's something that almost regardless of the quality of your product, people want to support.
Exactly. And I tell people all the time, like, I don't want to be your only coffee because there's probably some dude up the block that does it 20 times better than me. Like, this is really primitive, bro. Like, if you're looking for the super specialty, we roast to perfection, like, that's not me, dog.
I'm roasting on a campfire.
I'm roasting on a campfire.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I cannot control the environment. So I don't even try to go down that route. I try to get really close.
Yeah.
But I got to, like, be mindful of ambient temperature and the wood I'm roasting with and the moisture content of that and how hot it can get per pack. Like, there's some science involved in it, but it's like, at the end of the day, man, this isn't like a traditional quote-unquote roaster where I can control the temperature with the turn of a knob and I can control the airflow by flipping a switch. And nah, it's none of that. I might have a batch that takes me 20 minutes to roast, and then the next one, or, a batch 2 roasts later might take me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's, because the position of the sun, right? Like,
Yeah,
all
sure.
of that factors in. So, it's harder, it's more difficult, and it's way different than, like, what we've all been kind of trained to think about, especially specialty coffee, which to me also is weird because it's an agricultural product, right? Like 2 apples aren't the same, even if they're the same species of apple. So
I see
to
where you're
think
going
that
with
you can control a coffee bean and make it perfect, you're lying to everybody.
Sure.
You can't replicate that. They're like, oh, it's consistent. It's kind of consistent.
And
Like, the
99% of the
processes-
people won't be able to tell.
Precise.
Anyways, there's 1% that'll be like, oh, well, yeah, that's different
Precise.
than the last one.
Precise.
So they can peddle it as absolute perfection. when
Yeah.
no one knows.
Yeah. But
know?
if you like just think about it from like, wait a minute. Like, if I go to the store and I get 2 bundles of kale, they're gonna be different. It's gonna be different.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
funny. I've never actually thought about it that way. I think it's because I worked for Starbucks for 5 years.
Absolutely.
And everything they preach is same cup of coffee here
Yeah.
as it is in, China.
Yeah.
It's the same. We make it the same way every time.
Yeah.
And
And
that's probably why they over roast it.
Yeah.
Burnt
because
coffee.
It's the closest thing you can get to consistency. But if you're trying to do this specialty thing and bring out all these, like, look, man, I'm gonna never forget my first bag of Ethiopian coffee I bought. It tastes like somebody took blueberry syrup and jammed it into my coffee. It was incredible. That same farm I bought from the next harvest, and it tastes like somebody had given me a cup of really strong black tea.
Huh.
There was no fruit quality to it. And then you go back and you find out, oh, yeah, they were growing berries on the other side of this farm for the last 10 years, and they just switched over to now they're growing cacao. So it might taste like tea now, but the next harvest might taste more chocolatey because all of those minerals and nutrients are intermingling, the terroir, or whatever they call that. It's all different. So even from harvest to harvest can change. And that's that's not really an extreme example. It's because you got people getting away from monocultures and all of that. Like they're trying to diversify their crops. So they're growing a bunch of stuff on these farms, especially these smaller farms. And so, yeah, you might get some stuff from Hawaii, right? Like where we're growing, it's South Tacoma. It's in the Ka'u district, which is, they talk about the volcanic soil. Well, this soil is even more volcanic than the stuff that's in Kona. And you can see all kinds of
like where Kona coffee
right
comes from, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And Kona. So Kona's like the westernmost point of the Big Island. If you go down to the southern tip of the Big Island, you're in the Ka'u district. And they grow phenomenal coffee there too. It tastes completely different. Well, the composition of the soil is way different in Ka'u than it is in Kona. There's a lot of similarities naturally, but it's drastically different. And it can be drastically different depending on what you're growing on that same plot of land. So yeah, like the whole thing of, yeah, this coffee's so perfect and I roasted it just right and it's just beautiful, bro. Like, shut up. Like, bro, it's weird to me too, because as a marketer, I think about like when I would be trying to help people figure out products and how to present products. It's like, well, what's the utility of your product? And the utility of coffee, that first level utility is pretty consistent across the board. They need to wake up and they need it conveniently. It's kind of it. It doesn't have to necessarily be this, like that's cool if, you're supporting farmers. That's great too. You're supporting farmers. Yeah, we're all supporting farmers. Like all the importers we work with, like they're all connected to these farms and we all are paying an extra quarter per pound. Yeah, like we're all doing that. But some just decide to cherry pick certain parts of their messaging to make it seem like it's unique to them. And then when they like kind of outright, I don't want to say they're lying, but it's just this idea of this consistently perfect roast when you're dealing with an like no two steaks are the same, right? It's just weird to me. Like you could get the same cut, sure, but even from the same cow, you might be talking about.
Yeah, it's funny, dude. I'm a coffee snob, and I hadn't even really thought about that.
Most people don't. It is a cherry. It's a freaking fruit, and you're taking the seed out of that cherry, and from tree to tree, it could just be different. You could get it really fat. We'll get some in the roast, and we'll look, and man, a bean might look like a thumb, just this giant coffee bean. And then you go down, to the next batch from the same harvest, from the same farm and the same crop, and you got these little pea berries in there, which are these little round ones, right? And it's like, dang, like how does that happen? It's nature, man. Like you can only do so much to control it,
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Huh. Are you leasing the land that you're growing?
We bought it.
You bought it? That's killer.
It's cheap in the country in Hawaii, man.
Wow.
I know I'm telling listeners like that's my secret, but land on the Big Island of Hawaii is cheap.
Really? Didn't know.
Yeah, I thought it was really expensive.
Well, if you're like in Oahu or Maui, yeah, it's super expensive. But on the Big Island, depending on where you're looking, right? Once you get out of Kona and get out of Hilo, it's pretty cheap. Like I got an acre for less than $10,000.
Wow.
So, and
Max,
can we move to Hawaii?
Yeah.
Move to Hawaii.
I was just going to say, Max, cut that out. Cut that out.
You're
Do not put
in
that
the
on
country,
podcast.
though. It is in the, you ain't I'm 20 minutes from a beach. But the whole idea for that
you're
is
still 20 minutes from a beach.
20 minutes. Yeah, right. It's Hawaii. And the thought is, we'd grow this coffee there. We'd stick up some cool ass little structure and we would Airbnb it for a coffee farm experience. That would also, part of that would go to the local because they have a big, Hawaii's a state with a lot of poverty, lots of kids, while they know the water, are not comfortable in it. So we want to help fund some of those swimming programs to get more of the Hawaiian kids out on the water.
So cool.
That's the
awesome.
Hope. That's the hope. I just need to find some money to actually get a shipping container out there because those are a little more expensive. right? As a business owner, getting lending is a little tricky, especially when you're new. So it's like I had to. I know this is real estate, right? So like we have a few properties, and a lot of the land that we got, almost all, not all of it, but most of it, like we were able to get just on seller financing. Because we're business owners.
Yep.
It's like you go and you make an offer and you just tell the dude, would you carry this for 5 years? I'll give you X amount down and I'll pay for the closing, and we can go to the county and to the title office and get it all transferred over. And they're like, all right, cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel like we could talk for hours. I have so many questions, but I want to respect your time. Andrew, I know you got one more question.
Oh, yeah. So
I like this question. Andrew told us about it beforehand.
So, I like philosophy and stuff, and I think that I have I think a lot of people kind of have the morning coffee tradition. You know, that's what a lot of this is predicated on, is people wanting coffee in the morning, right?
Yes.
So, the German philosopher Immanuel Kant once said, "The morning coffee belongs to the realm of sacredness. In your opinion, what is it about morning coffee ritual that elevates it to such a revered status?"
That's heavy. It's heavy. I'm going to say, okay, this is a German philosopher that said this?
Yes.
That sounds like a really old quote.
Well, it is. He is an old philosopher. And so maybe I should have looked up the time frame, but there was a point in time where beer was the main drink because water was not great as far as drinking.
Correct.
And then coffee, they were like, okay, we can do this whole coffee thing.
Yes.
And people weren't perpetually drunk all day. They were just on coffee, which there's some argument as to maybe that's why the golden age was through coffee.
I believe
it was the transition between beer to coffee.
I believe it.
And so I think that sacred morning ritual, at least for me, it's really just getting everything going and just being able to relax for a minute.
Yep.
Gather your thoughts, have some coffee.
Get a big smell.
I
love that first cup, and I just sit down and I go, oh yeah, baby.
Yeah, it's actually a really visceral experience. Man.
It is.
I mean, it's the
absolutely.
I think that's part of the magic of coffee is so much of it is so simple. And, and I'm asking all this about, like, this guy because I'm thinking, like, okay, he's probably an older dude that lived in an era when we didn't know nearly as much about coffee as we currently do. And coffee being probably one of the first really widespread stimulants was probably looked at like this magic snake oil stuff. Like, have a cup of this and you will experience something you've never experienced, right? Like now it's just everybody knows coffee, but maybe 200-300 years ago it was like.
Max, can you look up when Immanuel Kant was alive?
I would imagine like, right? Because we got to think like so the coffee trade that I know of, right? This some like half of the world's coffee production around the late 1700s. Was produced in the Caribbean, mainly in Haiti, right? So you're thinking, and they were importing a lot of this, right? We're talking, slave labor and plantations. They were growing coffee. A lot of people don't know, like, almost a third of the Africans brought to the New World were actually brought to cultivate coffee. It wasn't just like tobacco and sugar and stuff like that we hear about. But all of that was going to Europe. So I would imagine that this guy was like, gotta be like 200 years ago. When
he was born in 1724.
There we go.
Okay.
And died in 1804.
Okay, so this is at this time when suddenly there's a massive influx of coffee coming to the European continent. So it was new.
Yeah.
So they were tripping.
Coffee shops were sprouting up everywhere.
That's right.
And people were going to hang out and do business in coffee shops instead of pubs.
So it's just like now, like I think it's probably on par with now when we hear about like all of these brain enhancers and nootropics and all these things. This brain fuel. Like that's probably what this was back then. But because the science wasn't so evolved, it was just like, here's this magic brown juice.
Yeah.
Do this in the morning, right? Like they probably had some doctor or somebody, some some village wizard that was like, drink the sacred brown juice in the morning and take your time.
It'll clear your brain and it'll clear your bowels.
It will do all of the above, right? And then you will become this, right? Right? Because everything was so like, everything's controlled by a higher power. But anything you couldn't explain, well, it was some invisible hand that controlled it back then. So I would imagine that's kind of where it started. And then as time evolves, as all things we do in the past, we romanticize it a little bit. And so we've had 200 years to kind of romanticize. Now it's commonplace for all of us to just have that. But for me, it's that I still take that in. There is nothing better to me than like getting up at the campsite, wherever we're at, and brewing that cup of coffee over the fire. There is nothing in this world like that.
Let's go.
I agree. Completely.
It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Man, and that was me and Witt's ritual for every camp, and we camped a lot. And that was always, there was, true story, there was a camping trip that we took. We were at Cape Disappointment. I forgot the tent, but absolutely had the coffee. We pulled into Cape Disappointment State Park with no tent, but guaranteed I had the coffee and all the peripherals to make the coffee. Had to go back into town and like pay $300 for a little Coleman tent, but it's because it's that important. It's like, that's the experience. Like, that's what you want. And it does, man. Like it does something. I'll never forget the first coffee. I didn't even roast it, but I know we got time, but so another weird part to the story is I put out a coffee with Anthem Coffee back when I was still in music. This was the year before we started camp. This was that summer 2018. August, I put out an album, and with the album, it was this outdoor themed album. I wanted an outdoor themed coffee before I even really knew that we were going to get into coffee, because that came that November, right? So August, I talked to Brian from Anthem, said, I want a coffee. He takes me down to Delano's. And I remember specifically talking to the roaster and saying, I want something that smells like I am drinking this in the middle of the trees. And my man's actually brewed up, I forget what blend it was that they had. And I was like, that's the one. And it did. It like the whole experience, I was like, yep, I'm somewhere in the North Cascades right now. I'm like hiking up to Diablo. Like, this is it. This is the one. And ever since then, like, now that I roast, like, that's what I try to do. I'm roasting in the middle of the woods. So I think all of that is like, and as humans, we love ritual. So, and we hold rituals close to our hearts. So I think that, 200 years ago, he was on to something crazy.
I love it. I love it. Absolutely.
So I went off on this whole tangent.
I love it.
Man, that is literally what this podcast is about, is just tangents and fun and learning about business.
I love it.
And the story behind them.
We had Brian on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's the guy, man.
He's awesome, man.
Yeah, he's got a very crucial, he was the first person I called when we decided to do our own coffee stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, Brian's the guy. All love.
So before we wrap up, we have 4 questions we ask at the end of every podcast. You cool
Rapid
if we
fire?
jump?
Let's do
Rapid
it.
fire. Yeah.
Let's
Ready
go.
for it? Here we
Yeah,
go.
let's go.
All right. So the first question, if you had $20,000 and 6 months to start a business unrelated to coffee, what would you do?
Campground. I'm putting up something on Hawaii and on my other properties I own, and we're going to get people outside. That's easy.
Love it.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Shipping
Love
container,
that.
yurt, something.
You figured out.
Andrew and
A
I are super
glamp
fast.
ground?
Yeah, glamping. Oh, yeah.
A glamp ground.
Yeah.
Here you go.
I love,
Love
it.
it.
Throw it
Great
up
answer.
on Hip Camp.
That's a
Yeah.
first. That's a first.
Love it.
Bam.
Out of 25 guests. That's the first one.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty
Here we
good.
go.
Okay, so books outside of the top 50 business books that we all know about. Is there anything that's kind of that you've read that you think other people should read?
There's also a podcast to this that I'm a big fan of, How I Built This, Guy Raz.
Yeah.
Awesome book, awesome podcast. Atomic Habits, another fantastic book. Gosh, I know this is probably in the top 50, but you got to do Art of War.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sun Tzu's the guy.
Yep.
2 more.
Oh, you only need one.
Oh, we need one. I thought you said. I thought you said 5. Okay.
No. Those
There
are
we
great.
go.
Those are
There-
great.
there's the 3.
How I Built This was a huge inspiration for this podcast.
Oh man, I love that.
I wanted something like How I Built This, but for local businesses.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah, Guy Raz, one of my favorite
Guy
podcasters
Raz.
ever. Yeah. Okay, sorry. If you could take your family anywhere in the world on a week vacation, fully paid for, where would you go?
Belize.
Cool. Why Belize? Have you been there?
No, I've been wanting to get there though.
Hell yeah.
It's like it's Caribbean, but it's still like kind of close-ish. There's still like mountains and jungles to go
Yeah.
see. It's not just beach.
Yeah.
So I could do my thing and they
Yeah.
can stay on the beach.
Yeah, we had a
Love
friend
it.
from Belize, and she has family out there, and it's gorgeous, beautiful.
Gotta
Lots
get
of
there.
pictures. Yeah, here it's amazing. Okay, last final question. You don't have to believe in it, but what's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Oh, snap, yo.
That's the best reaction we've had yet to that question.
I know.
You know why it's crazy? Because, like, you go through school like I went through, and you go through doctoral pro, and everything's super scientific. So I got to this point where, like, my mindset was really rigid about, like, whoa, there's no science to back it. I'm not with it. But, like, my pops is, like, he's not a huge conspiracy theory guy, but he kind of is. Like, he loves UFOs and all kinds of,
Sure,
like,
yeah,
absolutely.
he's that guy. Oh, man. So I would say it has to be Area 51.
So what about it? You think aliens? No aliens?
I mean, a part of me is like, yeah, there has to be. And they have to be somewhere. But then it's like, well, if they're here and they've been here, why don't we know more about them?
Why is there no like non-grainy video? That's like
Nothing, right?
And I'm like a believer too, but then like when people ask me that question, I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Dude,
Yeah.
did you guys see the documentary of it was in God dang it, I want to say it was South America. I think it was Brazil, where like there were these two aliens that these girls saw, and these got like people from the military came down and they like had him in a truck. One dude, like a couple
Picked
weeks
him up
later,
and died.
yeah, he handled him and he died from like this crazy weird virus thing.
What?
And then allegedly
It's a
the
substantiated
American
story.
Air Force like rolled in the next day and took everything out. And then like the people who are all involved won't talk about it.
It's called Moment of Contact.
Moment of contact.
Stop
Oh,
it.
man, I'm so
Okay.
glad you have
What?
the mic now.
You got to
This is
check
so
it out.
helpful.
You got to check it out. It is.
I've watched it.
It's
fucking wild.
wild.
Yeah.
Like that's probably
Really good.
I watch a lot of them because I hope there's aliens. I want them to be. So I watch
That's
all
exactly
the stuff.
how I feel. I'm so biased towards aliens. It's like you can tell me anything to prove that they're not real, and I'm still like they're real because I want them to be real.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
just,
that took place in like 1996 too.
Yeah,
It's
was
like
it-
the
was it
most
Brazil?
one of the most recent. Huh?
Was it Brazil?
Yeah, it's a small town in
I
Brazil.
just think it's weird to think that there's not another intelligent life force out there.
It's kind of arrogant.
It's
honestly.
very arrogant.
Yeah.
It's like
And only humans would do that, right?
of course.
Yeah,
Oh, we're the top dog. We're
Good
the only
point.
ones.
absolutely.
If-
What?
Good point.
Chimps could like articulate, and you could ask them, "Do you think there's other chimps in other places?" They'd be like, "Duh." You
Yeah.
know?
There has to be.
They would never be like, "Nah, we're it." Like,
No, they wouldn't. You're right.
thank you.
They'd be like, why wouldn't there be more chimps?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
We're here. you know?
We're here. There
Why
has
wouldn't
to
there be more somewhere else?
I'm tripping, but I'm always so torn because it's like, yeah, it's always just this super grainy video or this super far away.
Yeah.
Like,
And then you got bad actors too who just like want their,
Right.
30 seconds on TV. Yeah, I totally saw this. You're like, dude, shut up. You didn't see shit.
yeah. Like the thing in Vegas like 2-3 weeks ago.
I didn't hear about this.
No?
Whoa.
Some dude calls 911 because he sees like 3 8-foot beings in his backyard. So they have released the 911 tape. People are like trying to debunk it because they say he's way too calm on the call. Like he's going through this like he's done it before. But what kind of flips it on its head is the body cam footage from the cops who come. They released the body cam footage and like in the distance you can see this what appears to be a UFO like go up into the sky over and then disappears. Like
How
from
did I
his
hear about
from his
this?
backyard.
Oh man,
From
goosebumps over
dude's
here.
backyard. Yeah, it's a trip.
Okay, I feel like I did hear about this because the cops showed up and everyone thought it was crazy, and the cops showed up and the cops kind of freaked out, right?
Yes.
They're like, "Whoa, okay, hang on, this is not right."
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, dude. I think it was a couple,
All right,
3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was very
Now I
recent.
know how I'm spending my afternoon.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, dude, this has been so much fun. Can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you? And if you're impacted, if someone is listening and impacted by your story and they want to donate to your nonprofit, how they can do that as well?
Awesome. So, yeah, our website and all of our social media is We Love Campfire. So, welovecampfire.com, Instagram, We Love Campfire, Facebook, We Love Campfire, TikTok, all that. And if you do want to donate, whether it's gear or, a voucher to REI or something like that, like cash is cool, but it's really about the gear. You can just come bring it by the shop, 1554 Market Street. We just had a big haul that was donated the other day. We take gently used gear. We take new gear, whatever you got. Really looking for camping cookware if anybody has any. So, yeah, that's how you can find it. And that is actually called Campfire Explorers Club, and you can find that at Campfire Explorers Club on Instagram. But everything runs through welovecampfire.com.
Love it, man. This has been seriously such an amazing conversation. Like
Likewise,
I said, I
thank
feel
you.
like we could have gone for another hour, but
I know.
thank you again for doing this.
Oh,
Yeah,
anytime,
thanks for being here, man. It was awesome.
Love it. Thanks, fellas.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you got that camp stove and that freaking tent that you haven't used in 4 years. Go take it down to Campfire Coffee, drop it off, and pick up some of their coffee while you're at it. If you like what you hear, check us out on the Chatter Network and anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Love y'all. See you next time.